The filtering vat, which makes a pleasant sound, you place appropriately on a large collector vat. Ninkasi, the filtering vat, which makes a pleasant sound, you place appropriately on a large collector vat. When you pour out the filtered beer of the collector vat, it's like the onrush of Tigris and Euphrates. Ninkasi, you are the one who pours out the filtered beer of the collector vat. It is the onrush of Tigris and Euphrates.
So as you can see, our fermentation slowed down considerably. There is still some active fermentation, but it's not as active as it used to be. Welcome back. So this fermentation has been going for about just shy of 2 weeks now. And as I showed you, the fermentation calmed down quite a bit. But it hasn't finished completely yet. So there's still some bubbling, still some fizzing. It's been about 12 days since we started. But the recipe also don't end with the fermentation. The hymn doesn't end with fermentation. It describes filtering the beer as well, separating the liquid from the bread solids and the grains before drinking it. And this is a part of the hymn that we can recite to describe the filtering process. It is you who pour out the filtered beer of the collection vat. So today what we are going to do is basically to filter our beer. I've done the fermentation in the grain bag, and by removing the grain bag containing all the malt, the grains and the bread solids will basically be our filtering process, and then we will basically pour the beer into another container vessel, and from there on we'll decide whether we will finish the fermentation process or are we going to basically use it as it is at the moment. If we are happy with results that we currently have, we will basically see if it separates any other sediment, or we will bottle it, let it carbonate, and then maybe pasteurize it. But today we deal with the filtration process. So I brought my fermentation vessel over here. Just the fact that I moved it a bit actually let it start fermenting a little bit more actively again. But I think I'm still going to separate the grains or the bread solids from the liquid. And if there's any more fermentation that needs to be completed, we will do it in our other vessel as racking it to another vessel and then let the fermentation continue in that. So we will filter out the solids and then transfer the liquid into this vessel over here, and rack it into this vessel and continue the fermentation process in that if necessary. But otherwise, we will test and see if we like the result as it is at the moment. So I'm just going to take this fermentation vessel and place it down here, and I'll show you my plan on that. Basically what I'm going to do is I have two of my bar stools on each side of the vessel. Let me just bring it a bit closer, and I'm going to use this pole as a waist just to lift the grain bag out of the fermentation vessel. You can see the active fermentation still going there. But I think today is a good day to actually separate the solids. Going to remove the bubbler. Here we can see the fermentation was quite active at a stage. And you might want to do this outside so that you don't spill like I am. So we just quickly switched out the two vessels, and we're just going to let it continue to drain into this bucket. So I just quickly cleaned and sanitized the lid again, and I want to just place it on top of filtered beer that we've got here, just to ensure that there's no undesirable stuff coming into the beer. And then I'm just going to clean and sanitize this vessel as well. Okay, and while that is busy filtering, I am going to take this sanitized vessel and I'm going to start siphoning the beer from the fermentation vessel into this vessel, and I'm just putting another grain bag around the tube just to ensure that there's no sediment. Well, some sediments will come through, but no bigger particles coming into this water as well. And there we go. Just to show you the sediments that was caught in this grain bag as well. So there's quite a bit of few small particles, and I think a bunch of yeast that also still came through the grain bags. Okay. So I have filtered the beer through the grain bag, then transferred it to this vessel using my auto siphon and pulling another grain bag over the tube, and still the beer that ended up in this vessel is quite thick. I would say it almost has the look and consistency of a protein shake, and it makes sense that it is illustrated and described as the old Mesopotamians having drunk it with long reed straws, because I think there will still be some sediment settling out of this beer that we've got here, and then would have used the straws to drink from the middle. However, yeah, I'll say it's more or less like the South African Nkombooti, like an alcoholic porridge type of thing. I could still see some bubbles and fizziness rising to the top. So I think the fermentation is obviously still busy. We have covered this vessel now with a latex glove and punctured the middle finger of the glove with a needle, just to let any of the gases escape should they form any gases, which I'm sure they will. But I'm actually interested to see what the gravity of this beer is currently and what the potential alcohol volume of it might be, and also how it tastes at the moment. I think let's quickly do a gravity reading. So I'm going to take a sample for our gravity reading. Oops, a little bit too much. Ooh, the taste is strong. Needs a bit more. So at this moment, our gravity is exactly at 1.010. When we started off, I believe we started with 1.080, which was basically a 10%, and 1.010 is at about 3%, which means this is about 6.5% ABV. When we started, the gravity was at 1.080, which is just over 10%, say about 10.5%. We are now at 1.010, which is at about 3%. So this is about 6.5–7% ABV, which is quite strong, and you can taste it's quite strong. Have a taste quickly. It's not as thick as a Nkombooti, so it's not really like a porridge, but cheers. I expected it to be sour, but it's not sour. And it's also definitely not sweet. It's almost dry, but not really dry.
Like just Nesquik.
It looks very thick. But the hops that come through. Maybe this, I get the hops because I use Citra. And then there's a bit of sweetness.
But there's a hops.
I think
Your main.
because I wanted to do the hops as the aromatics.
It's not bad.
Mm.
It's thick.
No, it's thick, but it's
Not chunky thick.
it's almost like Horlicks. The consistency of Horlicks, like malt extract drink, which is basically what this is.
Surprisingly, it also doesn't leave like a layer in your mouth. You would think it would layer your mouth, but it doesn't.
I wonder now what it would be without the hops. But I think the hops makes it a bit more familiar to us as a beer. I think without the hops, but the only other thing that I really do taste is alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite strong. You get that sharp alcohol.
It does. But it's not bad.
I think I'm going to leave it and see if we can clarify it a bit more. And it's a little bit carbonated.
Yeah, you really get that. But it's nice.
It's strong. For a beer, so-called beer, it's strong.
Definitely more alcohol than a normal.
And funny enough, I didn't see any chunky bit or anything of dates. It chewed up the dates completely. But I'll see if I open the grain bag though, but the grain bag is still draining a bit.
But there is that sweet from the dates. Not a lot, it's not sweet, but you do at least get that.
It's different to what I expected.
I was expecting like that chunky,
And
but it's not
like
just
that.
not like that. But it's not. And it's smoother, sort of.
Yeah, on the one hand I'm happy, glad that I put the hops in. On the other hand, I actually wonder what it would have been without the hops. But then again, with the rim, the poem that says she mixes in the aromatics, we don't know what aromatics they used.
But this was a good aromatic choice.
I think the citrusy taste of the citra hops is just maybe makes me a bit off. Okay, yeah, so we will let this maybe stand for another couple of days just to check if it clarifies maybe. It seems like it already wants to separate a little. Yeah, I think that's the other thing, there's a lot of yeast in the beer still, but you can also see the sediments already like falling out.
You can see.
So there's definitely sediment settling out. So let's leave it for another week or two and see what happens. The worst comes to worst, if we don't like it or we can't make anything good from it, we can distill it. Although this is actually a bit more pleasant than the Mkumbuti. Interesting. So yeah, tasting a 4,000-year-old beer, and this is actually quite strong for a beer. Anyway, see you in the next one. This one was for filtering, and the next one is actually supposed to be for drinking and sharing and bottling, but let's give it time and see. Thank you so much for spending time. See you in the next one. Goodbye.